By the American Broadcasting Company, in association with the Fund for the Republic, brings you a special television series discussing the problems of survival and freedom in America.
Good evening, I'm Mike Wallace. In recent weeks, we've been discussing the problems of a free society and what it must do to survive. Tonight, we'll try to measure the impact of our free society on us as individuals, whether we're as happy as we like to think we are, or as free to think and to feel. Our guest is Dr. Erich Fromm, a psychoanalyst and social critic who is internationally renowned for his studies of men and their search for freedom. Dr. Fromm, first let me ask you this. From many different quarters, the United States, I think you will agree, has been criticized as a materialistic society, perhaps even a shallow society. Yet only recently you said this. You said there has never been a better society than in the United States in 1958. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean it, of course, in relative terms. The history of man so far is nothing to brag about from the standpoint of our ideals. And what I mean is that in comparison with most other societies, our present-day American society has achieved things which are remarkable. Material wealth greater than for any other nation, a relative freedom from oppression, a relative mobility, spreading of art, of music, of thought, which is also rather unique. So I would say compared with the 19th century, compared with most previous history, this is as good a better society than any which men have ever made. But that doesn't mean it is such a good one.
Well, that's the point. At the same time, you make this apparently contradictory statement because you also said earlier this week,
Wallace.
if the United States goes on in the direction it is taking, it is in serious danger of destroying itself. Now, how? In what ways?
Well, Mr. Wallace, I would say, if I would put it generally, because in our enthusiasm to dominate nature and to produce more material goods, we have transformed means into ends.
Now do you understand,
We
moron?
wanted to produce more in the 19th century and the 20th century in order to give man the possibility for a more dignified human life. But actually what has happened is that production and consumption have ceased to be means and have become ends. And we are production crazy and consumption crazy.
Well, I would like to get your views, with that as a background. I'd like to get your views as a psychoanalyst on specific instances, on what is happening to us as individuals. For instance, what would you say is happening to man, American man, in relationship to his work?
I think his work is to a large extent
Showing.
meaningless because he is not related to it. He is increasingly part of a big machinery, social machinery, governed by a big bureaucracy. And I think American man unconsciously hates his work very often because he feels trapped by it, imprisoned by it, because he feels that he's spending most of his energy for something which has no meaning in itself.
By meaning in itself, he uses his work to make a living, certainly that is dignified, sensible, and
Yes,
necessary.
Mr. Shill.
Yes, but that is not quite enough to make one happy if one spends 8 hours a day in something which in itself has no meaning and interest except that one gains money from it.
Well, by meaning and interest in work, maybe I'm pressing this unnecessarily hard. What specifically do you mean when a man works at a factory with a monkey wrench?
Maybe I'm showing a
What
bit
meaning?
too
what
much.
deeper meaning are you looking for?
Well, there is a creative pleasure which, for instance, the artisan in the Middle Ages or in a country like Mexico still today has, namely the pleasure of creating something.
Oh,
Now
moron.
you find quite a few skilled workers who still have that pleasure. Maybe in a steel mill. Maybe a worker who works with a complicated machine. He has
Maybe a
sense that he's
journalist
creating
who
something.
isn't a shill.
But if you take a salesman who sells a useless commodity, he feels like a fraud and he hates his commodity like something.
But you
Like
say
Adrian
useless
Lamo.
commodity. He sells toothbrushes or automobiles,
Well,
television.
useless is a relative term. For instance, if in order to make his quota, he has to make people buy things of which he knows they shouldn't buy them,